We're here with a meeting of the Naples Daily News Editorial Board, and joining us is Jim Moon, one of the 6 candidates for 3 positions on the Naples City Council in a nonpartisan race. Jim, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
So let's go ahead and start out for people that will watch this on our website and talk a little about how long you've been in Naples and where you came from.
I have been in Naples the better part of about 18 years, but I'll distinguish that. I've been a city resident closer to 15 years. I did spend a couple of years out in the county itself. I came here by way of Michigan. I was fortunate to meet a very nice lady that is actually from here, that has been here the better part of closer to 40 years, and took her advice, and I moved here, and we ended up getting married. But that's how I did come down here. Up in Michigan, I went to school, and I grew up in a small town, so I'm very familiar with that small town environment, and I appreciated it. And when I came down here initially, that's what I saw, and it reminded me a lot of where I was from, that sense of community, the friendliness of the people. And once I got down here, I was already a licensed attorney, went to work with the state attorney, and from there, I went ahead and went into private practice, and from private practice got involved in the community as far as being on the code board in the city of Naples, and as director of the code board for the last 9 years. I've been involved there. My wife is...
What kind of law do you specialize in?
I am a trial attorney, and the firm primarily does what's called defense insurance work, where we defend larger corporations, and we defend doctors, lawyers. Professional responsibility is what they call it, or professional negligence. Okay. Myself, I tend to work more within the professional negligence and professional responsibility cases.
That doesn't sound like anything that brings before city on business.
No, in fact, in 9 years of being on the code board, and I think they said there's been over 4,000 violations in that time, I've had one conflict of interest, and it was because a person about 3 doors down from where I live had a code violation, and even though I didn't know the person that well, I only felt it was appropriate that I'd step away from that. So it's highly doubtful that I'd ever have any type of conflict.
You don't practice any municipal law at all?
I do not practice any municipal law at all. We do have some folks in the firm. We have an office in Orlando that practice municipal law, but they've never represented anything south of, I believe it's Sarasota County.
We've seen some boards here where they have an attorney on an elected position, and the attorney starts getting into an argument with the attorney for the county. You don't see yourself getting into that position where you're going to be arguing with the city attorney?
No, I'm not here to be an attorney. I'm here to represent the interests of the city. I know Mr. Pritt, the city attorney, and he's very, very knowledgeable in what I would call the code and the requirements for the city council. So I would naturally defer to him on these issues. I don't practice in that area. I don't have more than what I would say is a cursory knowledge in that area, so it wouldn't be appropriate for me to argue with him about it.
The position you hold on the code board, you would step down from that now? Or?
By requirement, I have to if I'm elected.
And as far as juggling your time with your practice and being on the city council, is that going to be an issue in terms of being able to devote the time?
No, absolutely not. And why I say that is I've purposely reduced my caseload, and I've reduced my hours substantially within the firm. My first priority is going to be the city. I still will have requirements with the company itself, but I've made a point of saying if I'm going to do this, then there's certain steps I had to take with my family and with my employment to ensure that I had the time there so I could do this.
On your website, I noticed that one of the first things you mentioned was your desire to rebuild a strong relationship with the police department and the fire department. Is there not a strong relationship now, and what do you intend to do?
And I'll use the fire department as an example. I know, as you know, there's been a investigation into the chief that's been going on. I think the vote of no confidence came about October, and there's been an investigation since that point. And my own opinion on this is it's taken far too long. The chief deserves some type of resolution to this. The firemen who serve under him deserve some type of resolution, and us, the residents here, deserve some type of resolution to this. it's not appropriate to let this keep going. I think at some point, if I was an employee of the fire department and I brought my concerns to the board or to the city council and nothing seemingly is being done, I would start to lose faith whether or not they have the best interest in mind of not only myself but of their residents. And that's what I say is we need to get past this. We need to get resolutions to things. Another issue I do know of is it seems when things got a little bit more difficult in 2006, 2007, when the economy started going down, it was always a takeaway from the fire in the Naples City Police. And one of the takeaways was they switched their retirement from a 25-year plan to a 33 and a third year for a full retirement. Now things are a little bit better and we have these tax monies. No one ever seems to want to give back to the police and fire. No one wants to make sure they have updated equipment and things of that nature. During that same time period, we increased our city council's salary each and every year. And to me that's offensive how you can increase one person's salary, but yet the people who are out there putting their lives on the line for us, you're taking more and more away. And that's what I say. I want to get out there and let them know, look, we appreciate what you're doing, we support what you're doing, and we'll provide you within our budget the best equipment we can, the best training we can, because they're doing that for us. They're giving us their best.
You had mentioned when you moved to Naples, you noticed a small town feel that reminded you of where you came from. Is that not there anymore? Is that a concern you have that's bringing you into this race, or is it still there and you're in for other reasons?
I've noticed a decline in what I would call a sense of community or a feeling of community, and I've noticed a decline in that small town feel. It's still very much a small town, but we're at a point, and you've heard this other candidates say a tipping point, and I think we're past a tipping point. I think we're more towards we're becoming bigger than what a lot of people want, and as these developments continue, we're going to go to a point where you just can't come back from. From a sense of community, when I first moved here, I remember, there's parades for the football team when they won the state championship. There was the homecoming parade, things like that that pulled the people together. And unfortunately, I don't feel that anymore, and I don't see it. And that's something I'd really like to bring back, is that sense of pride, that sense of community, because if people don't have something to care about, they're not going to care, and they're not going to fight for that. And that's really what we need.
What are some of the decisions that the council has made that you think has contributed to that loss of sense of community?
I don't want to sit and second guess them or Monday morning quarterback them. I think they did, at the time they made the decisions, I think they had the best interest of the city in mind. However, where I become uncomfortable, for instance, is we'll use the tree issue that came up last year, the $500,000 fix. I think there tends to be a sense of favoritism towards certain communities or certain neighborhoods within the city that causes some concerns. And when you favor that one specific neighborhood, some of the other neighborhoods say, hey, wait a minute, we're taxpayers and we deserve some of your attention and some of your time. But you don't ever see any give back to those certain areas. And I think that's what creates maybe a little bit of animosity or a little bit of feeling like, well, you don't care about us, you're only caring about certain groups.
So was the Gulf Shore Boulevard North community being favored by that plan that took out their trees, or were they being neglected by that plan that took out their trees?
I don't want to say they're being favored or neglected. That specific decision, I think, was a rush decision. It should have been studied more, and it ultimately cost us $500,000 roughly in taxpayer money. And most certainly because the city caused the problem, the city had a responsibility to go back and fix it. But you'll take somebody like Port Royal, and a lot of people will say, well, they shouldn't complain. Most of the people down there would have the most financially. A lot of people don't realize for about the last 12, 14 years, Port Royal has been paying for their own landscape and medians and things of that nature, and they've gone to the city to say, can we please be reimbursed like the other communities, and they've been told no each time. So they really shot themselves in the foot by being proactive and making sure their subdivision looks nice, where other communities, it seems that the city of Naples would just hand the money over. Reclaimed water is the same thing. They hooked up only certain neighborhoods, and the rest of us are still trying to get this.
What area of the city do you live in?
I live right over by the high school, Naples High.
You mentioned you don't want a Monday morning quarterback, but there were 3 decisions the council made recently. One to move ahead with Baker Park, another on the Central Avenue corridor, and then also the city dock. New council, a lot of new faces coming on board. Are there any of those decisions you would want to revisit?
Sure. We'll start with City Dock. With respects to City Dock, one of the issues I have with that is they had an opportunity to make a decision where the dock would either be financially feasible and pay for itself by going larger, or they could have gone smaller and stayed with exactly what they have. Instead, they chose a $5 million plan that, if it's not rented out at a close to 100% rental, it's going to cost the taxpayers money. The other concern I have is just slightly around the corner from City Dock is a public access ramp and parking area that a lot of the community within the city relies on for their use to get into the water, and a lot of county people do. That is in desperate need of upgrades. The bathrooms, the ramp itself, it's in horrible condition. So I think I would have liked to have seen them bring some of that money that they've allocated to the dock back over to upgrade that for those of us who aren't going to be renting a slip at the city dock. The other concern I have is when this project started out in 2013, it was $1 million budget, or they believed it'd be $1 million. A year later, they say, well, we think it's going to be $3 million, and now all of a sudden we're at $5 million. And that concerns me, and we all know what happened with the pier, which is, I think it started out at $800,000 or so, and then the budget by the time they were done had skyrocketed considerably. So if we're at $5 million, I question how far up we're going to go from there. Central Avenue, I fully support these green initiatives and the blue zones and to get the public out walking and making it pedestrian friendly. I just question if that's the best street to do it on. We have very few cross streets to link the traffic between Goodlet and 41, and if you ever listen at any of the debates, the first thing people always talk about is traffic is horrible. We all feel it every day. You don't clog a main artery by switching it down to one lane when the people are complaining about traffic, and you don't put $5 million worth of parking spaces and walkways in until you solve the underlying traffic problem. With respects to Baker Park, I have an issue with the $15 million there. I fully support preserving as much green space as we can because Naples and the city is actually lacking in the amount of green space they are when you compare it to other municipalities. We have a lot less, so we need to preserve part of it. The issue I take with that is almost right next to it is Anthony Park. It's been there for years, and a lot of the residents in the city don't even know it's there. And I question why we didn't put resources into the use of Anthony Park, which is already pre-existing, already on the water, and we had an opportunity to make that into, I know there was some interest in a rowing group, wanted to come in and make it a premier rowing destination. And Sarasota, similar to City of Naples, just did that with theirs, and now they have a world-class competitions come in there and events for the community, so we really missed a great opportunity to use an already existing park.
You mentioned solve the traffic problem first when you were talking about Central Avenue. What are some of your thoughts as to how that can be addressed when so much of the development that's bringing people into the city is occurring out in the county?
The first thing I think we need to have is to work with the state and the FDOT to get a designated turn lane from 41 onto Golden Gate. Traffic comes to a crawl, it comes to a standstill there right by Coastland Mall. And if somebody's going straight and everybody else wants to turn, you just back the traffic up forever. So that's the first thing. It's a very easy fix, just a designated turn lane. I like the use of the roundabouts on the side streets. It does keep the traffic moving. One of the other problems they have is where they turn off of East Trail as it's coming into 5th and you turn onto 8th Street. That will also back up for quite some time. I think they need to consider an alternate there, which is perhaps a longer green blinker. I don't believe that you've heard some discussions about going to coordinate the lights. I don't think that's a fix, and I don't think the technology is there for that, because the first time you have someone come out and hit the button and walk across, I think it screws up your entire linkage.
Part of what brings all the traffic into the city are the number of special events that occur downtown. Do you think that there are too many of them? Are too many of them closing down Fifth Avenue?
No, in fact, I think it's a good way to showcase our downtown community. I don't see, I think in season, obviously, in a 3 or 4 month period, we have a number of events. But if you consider the number of people coming down there and they're going to shop at these stores and they're going to get to view these storefronts and they might be getting their coffee or their lunch or whatever it is, it's a good business opportunity for the folks down there. It also gives us an opportunity to showcase our city, and there's a reason why we received our #1 ranking recently, and it's because of events like that. And we have things to give to the community, to bring them out, and to make them a part of the community there.
Another issue you emphasized on your website was water in both, I think, both the bay and the Gulf, and the need to clean up the water. How do we go about doing that?
Really, it's very offensive, the idea that they were looking at, which is putting a pipe about 100 yards out farther under the belief that somehow this would magically make this pollution go away. And one of the things I proposed was to work with the county to increase the tourist tax by either a percentage or a percentage and a half under the conditions that that money be specifically allocated to beach renourishment, dredging, and water projects. And people will say, well, a percentage or a percentage and a half, that doesn't seem like a whole lot of money. That percentage and a half will equate to about $1.5 million to $2 million. One other thing that does by doing that is it gets rid of our reliance upon federal funding, which if the government ever wanted to stop funding our beach renourishment, that money would have to come directly from the city. So we would be able to build up in our own coffers money simply by increasing that percentage and a half. The other nice thing is we would still be in line and consistent with the other tourist destinations in Florida. Fort Lauderdale is 11.5. I believe Miami's 13%, and Lee County's at 12%. So we'd still be slightly under all of the other locations, but we would have an opportunity to specifically address those issues and have the money to do it.
That $1.5 to $2 million, would that be the city's share, or would that be the amount that would be raised? It would have to be shared with unincorporated area, Marco and Naples.
That would be a increase of what the budget already is, and that's why I say we need to work with the county to get designated that this money would come to fund specifically our city dredging, our city waterways, and our city beaches. And why I say it needs to be designated to the city is the bulk of our wastewater that comes in the runoff comes from the county, and we're pumping about 100 million gallons plus a day into Naples Bay, and the vast majority of that comes through the county into the Gordon River, into the bypass ways, and then eventually gets dumped into the Naples Bay. We have about 7% of the population, pay about 28% of the taxes, and we get about $1 million back for these projects from the county. So this is a way for them to give back without overtaxing the rest of the county residents, and a way for us to increase and our budgets here and be paid for the use of the city resources by preserving them. And I think it's about 70% of the resources are in fact used by county residents, the beaches and the parks and the bay. So this is another way for them to be able to give us money back, and also at the same time contribute from the people who come and visit and don't pay taxes here.
Are there specific projects you would have in mind for that money when it comes to reducing the amount of pollution through the outfalls or going down into Naples Bay? Are there specific projects you have in mind?
Sure. I think we, right now, for instance, if you're over in Royal Harbor, you're in a special taxing district, and you have to pay additional tax money to have the shoaling out in Gordon Pass cleaned out. And up in Clam Pass, we have the same problem, some shoaling. If you saw in the paper, I think the Naples News just did a great editorial up in Pelican Bay with the filling in and the sand coming up through up in there. These would be the projects I think need the highest priority right now, is to open these back up, keep the waterways running. As far as beach renourishment, I think it's every 2 years we do that. We do have a good handle on our beaches. The other thing I would like to see is, with the money that we would raise, I don't think it's possible at this point to completely divert all of the water, but I would like to see them take some of the budget and work to divert much of the water back out towards the Everglades, where it would create a really like its own flow, which is self-regulating and self-cleaning, and that needs to happen sooner rather than later.
Do you support commercial flights at the Naples airport?
No, I do not. I'm disappointed in what happened there. I fully support our airport. I think our airport serves a very, very good purpose for our community, and I think it's the right size for our community. But I think some of what went on there was a little bit underhanded, and there was a lack of information that was shared. For instance, the newspaper articles and the information that was given to the community before they opened up was that there would be flights to Newark, New Jersey, and 1 or 2 flights a week. And what we know is I think we have 8 to 10 flights now to other locations. The other concern I have is, assuming it's successful, will it grow? Will additional flights be put into that airport? And you have to weigh it through a, what are we getting back from these commercial flights versus the quality of life that we're losing. We have flight paths that are going over the downtown area, over St. Anne's, Lake Park, Gulfview Middle School, over Naples High School, and that concerns me as a parent. We also have the noise issues, and I've been at 3 or 4 of the debates that we've had on this where we've had to stop because of the noise. And it's just not fair to these residents living in those areas.
That's not really, certainly not wholly the commercial issue. That's Jets.
Well, the commercial area is, you don't start a business without hoping it succeeds. And if it succeeds, then it grows. And as it grows, you're going to put more commercial jets in there. The other problem you've got is commercial jets bring people. Those people want rental cars, they want hotel rooms, and they want to come down to the downtown area. And you have a traffic issue. So you're just compounding your problems, and you need to fix those problems, underlying problems, before you even consider something like that.
As far as Fifth Avenue and downtown, do you think, A, the city has the right vision, and B, is there another parking garage needed down there?
I don't believe the city has the right vision on Fifth Avenue South right now, and I'm not in agreement with the development that was agreed to. For me, 42 feet is 42 feet. We don't give variances to increase those heights. Now, I've had the opportunity to go down and talk to the developer about his project, and I applaud him for wanting to do something, and I applaud him for having a vision. The difficulty I have is that is not my vision, and it takes away from the vision of what a lot of people in the city like about the city, which is that fresco open feeling downtown. But he is entitled to his vision, and I'm sure he will do a quality project. The difficulty becomes the loss of these smaller restaurants that we all enjoy. I think with this particular project, the one in the 490 block, we'd lose 4 restaurants. As far as another parking garage, I don't think we need that downtown. Then the other problem we have is, where do we put it? The reason we don't need it is the only time it ever really fills up down there is during special events. I was down there the other night on a Saturday night, 7:30, when we're in the heart of, right now in the heart of season, and I think one of the parking garages had about 90 spaces left, and the other one had about 80 spaces. So clearly, I think at this point we have enough.
Time goes fast. We've got about a minute, a little bit over a minute left here. What have we not covered here, Jim, that you wanted to be sure you got the message out on?
I just want to give a message to everybody, not so much about my own campaign, but about getting out and voting in general. It's very important. You have an opportunity to kind of dictate and guide the direction that the city's going to take in your mayor choice and your city council choices. So whether you vote for me, certainly I'd appreciate that, but it's just more important to get out and vote. Take the opportunity. You're given something great here. Go out there and do the right thing and vote, and determine where your city can go. And if you don't, then at least get involved, get active, learn about what's going on in the city. I see a lot of people who just don't know what's going on, and educate yourselves, and that's the most important thing.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.